Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast of Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who swears he never had Shitter Sanders' phone number. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Was not fined $250,000 or whatever it was. That's always a good news. And yeah, I mean, things have been good. Had a little mini Red Sox win streak. We had maybe the best soccer game of the year this year so far today. So everything's going good. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, glad to hear. As in, just because I know you also play a lot of sports. Are you talking about playing or watching?
Watching.
Okay.
The game today was amazing. Barcelona, they just play drunk games all the time. It's great stuff.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Kyle, sports have not been going great in my world. This has not been, I cannot say I've been doing the same.
Yeah, tough series for you there.
Yeah.
Rays aren't helping you out, and yeah, I can't imagine it being fun all around.
The Rays actually got a bit of a win streak. They're at 500 now.
Oh, there you go. We're back.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sure. The Magic lost in 5. The Lightning are about to lose in 5, maybe. But we got some things going. Kyle, no one cares about that. Let's talk about the draft recap. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the AFC teams just because we want to be able to talk a little bit longer about these teams. And I figure let's just break it up to make sure that we can, have as much time as we want to talk about things. And Kyle, let's not bury the lead here. Should we just go right into the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest story of the draft. Obviously, or at least ESPN made it definitely the biggest story of the draft. It was very noteworthy, of course. The Cleveland Browns finally take Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round in a controversial draft fall. Okay, I guess as this transpired, what was your thoughts overall? And, do you like the fit? And explain the whole situation from your perspective to me.
Yeah, well, let's just start with the Shitter Sanders thing, and then we can talk about the Browns as a whole. So first he falls out of the 1st round, and I wasn't shocked that it happened. I was surprised Dart went ahead of him, even though I had Dart as quarterback 2 on my board, just because I didn't see anyone else have that take basically. So I figured that, so that was a bit of a surprise, but we knew it was possible he'd fall out of round 1, right? When we did our mock draft, he fell out of round 1. It's something that I think I'd even said he might go top 5, he might fall out of round 1. So I wasn't stunned when that happened. But then when he falls out of round 2 and round 3, and guys like Dylan Gabriel and Tyler Shook and Jalen Milroe are all getting selected ahead of him, it was one of the biggest draft surprises I've ever seen in my life, quite frankly. I don't think I've ever seen something quite like this. Even Malik Willis, we knew there was a chance he would fall because some people didn't love him. We just thought he would get drafted earlier because of, the fact that teams need quarterbacks, and he still went day 2. I think it was shocking. Anyone who says, "Oh, this wasn't surprising," you're a liar. No, none of us expected this.
Yeah, this is definitely a surprise. Round 5 is an extreme one, and there was a bunch of reports out. Everybody had their opinions on what happened, how this happened, and all that. And yeah, I mean, it clearly seems like this interview process that people talked about, because that seems to be the most consistent thing, is how bad his interview were and how bad he presented himself to these teams. It seems like whatever happened during this process clearly hurt him in the draft profile. And, I think it's kind of the similar thing that Tim Tebow went through. I mean, he got drafted in the 1st round, but after Tim Tebow kind of flamed out in Denver, it was one of those things where it's well, we don't think you're very good, and you'd also be a distraction, and we just don't want to deal with the distraction on top of someone we don't think is very good either. And that's just kind of became the Tim Tebow story for the rest of his career, and why he ended up, kind of.
Urban Meyer didn't mind it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. But Shedeur Sanders, it very much became clear that that seems to be the situation here, because look, I was open, he was the number 2 quarterback on my draft board, but at the same time, I didn't have a 1st round grade on him. I only had one quarterback with a 1st round grade. I think him and Jackson Dart were both 2nd round guys to me. And he fell a lot further than that. So yeah, that was definitely a shock. And, see him end up there was very interesting, but he still gets drafted and a chance to prove himself here in the NFL.
Yeah, I think we always look for the one reason when in reality, there's usually a lot of reasons for something like this happening, right? I think for Sanders, his film wasn't great. And that was kind of the biggest thing is he's a project quarterback who isn't a great athlete. I have to say, some people are talking about him like he's Peyton Manning or something. Like he can move, like he's not like the statue, but he doesn't have the high upside that some of these players do. He also is a bit of a project. And then when you throw on I think that already knocked him out of round 1. And then when you're already considered a day 2 pick, and then you're having this other stuff, that probably hurt his stock a little bit. Still, I mean, again, there's players who are getting drafted to be like backups or guys we're not even sure are going to make the roster ahead of him. So it's stunning that he fell that far.
Yeah, very stunning that he fell that far. And not to mention, he gets taken by a team who drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round.
Yes.
Has Deshaun Watson on this huge, insane contract that's going to hold the team back for multiple years. And also signed Joe Flacco this offseason and traded for Kenny Pickett. So he is technically the 5th quarterback on the roster. I mean, they're not going to go into the season, obviously, with 5 quarterbacks. So multiple of these guys are getting cut/moved. We'll see what happens, obviously, throughout the summer. But, I mean, this Browns thing is about as extreme as we've gone in, like, let's just put in as many bullets in the chamber at the quarterback position as we can and just hope one hits the target sort of thing. They're just they're going to test all of these guys, I guess, and like, hey, play better than Joe Flacco and you get the job, basically, it seems like.
Yeah, if Joe Flacco wins the job, just clean house, just he'll be the one quarterback. Don't even work if this can't happen, because you're right. You have 3 young quarterbacks. Watson, I think, he re-aggravated his Achilles thing, so I think he's just going to be on IR for the whole year. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if he just doesn't even show up to any of these team events. But you have the other 4 guys, and just going to come down to who can play better. And like for Sanders, it's not a guarantee he makes the roster. He might be a practice squad guy, because you're right. Like as of today, he has to be QB4, right? I mean, don't you kind of have to put just today, if you're doing the preseason depth chart has to be Flacco 1, Pickett 2, Gabriel 3, and Sanders 4, because you're going to put the rookies last, and Gabriel was selected ahead of Sanders, so he's going to have to climb up just to make the team, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how we'd have to put it. I mean, I would assume that all of these guys are going to get a chance to prove themselves in training camp. So long way, obviously, until the season still. But yeah, I would say right now he is the 4th quarterback on the roster. So absolutely wild times and a wild draft for Cleveland. Obviously they opened the draft too with the crazy trading back to number 5. And I mean, look, I thought this was a 2 superstar draft. I thought there was a bunch of pretty good prospects after that, but there was 2 really great prospects, and they got a huge haul to move off one of the picks for those great prospects to get a good prospect. I like Mason Graham. I like what he can do. He's a good football player at defensive tackle, I think, and they got big capital for it. So, do I like Travis Hunter a lot? I do, but they also moved back and got a pretty good player and extra draft picks. I don't think it was necessarily a wrong decision. So they do that. They draft 2 quarterbacks, which is interesting. I mean, there's a lot, 2 running backs in this draft, kind of just a wild up and down draft for these guys. And it, obviously the 5th round pick is the most talked about one when you made the biggest trade of the day.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately, the quarterbacks, I like the decision. Let's get some guys in the building. Let's see if we can make it work out. It's a 1 quarterback class. Don't reach on they could have drafted Shedeur Sanders at 5 and people wouldn't have questioned it. So getting him at 1, well, people would have questioned it, but it wouldn't have been shocking. Getting him over 100 picks later, not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, for the trade back, Kyle, I thought long and hard about this. I think I am pro trading back for the Browns here and anti trading up for the Jaguars. And you know me, I love Travis Hunter. I think he's probably the best pure prospect in this draft class. But ultimately, the philosophy I've always had, and like kind of what analytics people will tell you, is you don't trade up for a non-quarterback, because just usually when you win, the wins are small, and when you lose, you can lose massively. The other team is getting multiple players. Now, the Jaguars are kind of getting multiple players with Travis Hunter, and that's what complicates things. But ultimately, I just think, with what the Browns already got, not to mention they're getting next year's Jaguars 1st round pick, a team that has picked 1st overall twice in recent history. It's a good idea, I think, for the Browns.
I think it's a good idea for the Browns because I think they need to prioritize their future. This team wasn't In my opinion, this team was not going to turn competitive with this draft. Just because there wasn't the quarterback prospect where they were selecting. They are a long way, I think, from competing, and they had this albatross of a contract. So I think them moving back, getting a pretty good prospect, and also future capital is important because the future is more important than the present for the Browns. So I don't hate it. As far as the Jaguars' perspective goes, I don't know, man. Like, I kind of don't want to have an opinion on it now for the Jaguars' perspective. Because what if Travis Hunter is able to just break football and play 90 plays a game? Then he's probably worth all of this, even as a non-quarterback. He's going to become the most valuable non-quarterback in the league at that point. And like the fact that there's a greater than 0% chance of that happening, I think is tantalizing for a lot of teams. I could see a lot of people seeing a situation like this and saying, like, this guy could play 90 snaps a game, be awesome, play both sides of the ball for us. And like, yeah, I mean, this is the Ohtani thing. Like they use WAR all of these years for baseball, WAR metrics, and Ohtani breaks WAR metrics in a lot of ways. Obviously he's not pitching as much anymore. But like, yeah, if Travis Hunter can kind of break football in a certain way, like, doesn't that become worth it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, so let's jump to the Jaguars now. That's not exactly the order I was going to have us do, but we'll just go there because we're talking about them. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, yes, there is that potential for the Jacksonville Jaguars that they could, if Travis Hunter ends up being a star player at two different positions, then like, yeah, this probably ends up being a fair trade. There is just that risk factor of most people don't think he'll be able to play both positions. It seems like the Jaguars aren't going to start him at corner. They're going to start him at receiver, which to me feels like not, and they're going to play some packages at corner, which is kind of a confused do that. We'll see. Yes. And this is why, I said I'm probably pro Browns in this trade. I think that's what I would have done. I think there's a much better argument for doing something like this from Jacksonville's perspective than there usually is.
Yeah. I think he's going to end up playing both sides, but we'll see. I mean, whether it works or not, we'll see, I guess is the question. But yeah, I think he has the potential to do it, and it'd be interesting to see how it works out. But yeah, if they start him at receiver still, it's still a big risk. That's the big thing. Like, it is still a massive, massive risk. Because like you said, this is a lot of draft capital to move up for a non-quarterback. And he was my number one prospect in this draft. So you could say, well, we're getting the best prospect in the draft. We'll see what happens after that. But yeah, I still think it's a big risk. And if he's only going to play one side of the ball the majority of the time, then at that point, yeah, basically, it's not a good deal at that point, right? Because you're not getting the additive value from a receiver. Even if he becomes a Pro Bowl receiver, that's still a lot of capital to give up for a guy at that position. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how that plays out for Jacksonville. But, they took a risk. They found a guy they really liked. And, they were aggressive to get Chris Godwin in the offseason. Didn't work out because obviously, he re-signed in Tampa Bay. And they all of a sudden give themselves a really nice receiver duo with him and Brian Thomas Jr. for next season. Yeah,
that'll be great. That'll be a lot of fun. It's just I do worry with the we're talking about with the Browns of them not being a player away. Listen, Travis Hunter, if I was a Jaguars fan, I'd just buy his jersey today. Like that's like a rookie jersey I'm okay with buying, right? That's fun. But the thing is are we going to have a situation where they still have plenty of holes on defense? This is still an offensive line I don't love. I know they did address that with like Wyatt Millam in the draft, but like I still think there's holes here. And of course, we don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to play like this next year. Lawrence has had a bunch of injury history. What if he gets injured week 2? And now you didn't have a second round pick. They didn't pick again in this draft until pick 88, where they drafted a guy projected to go 150. So that's also not ideal. But you have that, and then you don't have your first round pick next year. I just worry, are we getting stuck in the mud here?
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting draft. They drafted a slot corner with their second round pick. They still have some holes, it feels like, on their offensive line for sure, specifically at right tackle position. So how's that going to work out this next season? And then, yeah, I mean, like, it still has to play better. Like we have been big Trevor Lawrence defenders on this podcast, but like if he doesn't take the step forward that he needs to, then all of a sudden this is going to be tough. And then, we're looking at potentially a very high pick next year going to another team. So, it's going to be, if this ends up a top 5 pick going to Cleveland next season, then this is a disaster, right? So it's just going to be very fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on, Kyle. The way I had this formatted was I was going to go AFC North, then West, then South, then East. Does that work?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, let's go to the Steelers then, who did not have the most electric draft, and that was kind of by design. They decide not to go quarterback until pick 185 when they select Will Howard. Did get a couple players I like. I like Derek Harmon a lot. I like Jack Sawyer a lot. I'm not sure if Sawyer is going to get playing time behind that loaded edge rushing group, but like if he does get into the lineup, he should be good there. Caleb Johnson should be a good running back. It's value there at pick 83. So ultimately, like, again, it's a very Pittsburgh Steelers draft, I feel like. I think one step is like they 100% have Aaron Rodgers on their roster. Like that, I'm convinced that that's an agreement with how they handled this. But yeah, I think, again, they didn't reach on a quarterback before they should have. They, added talent. It's a draft that I'm not sure if we're doing grades here, but a draft I'm mostly positive about.
I think I'm mostly positive about it. I mean, obviously the tough thing is that like they've given themselves no room for negotiation here. They have to get a quarterback, whether it is Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins.
Not Will Howard?
Will Howard, I'm willing to bet Will Howard will not be starting next season.
I don't hate the pick though as like a flyer for later years, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, I think it's a good job overall. I like Harmon on this team. I like Johnson on this team. Sawyer is going to get a chance at least to learn from the best. It's going to be probably a more developmental pick though. But yeah, it's just going to be. It puts yourself in a bind still for sure that like you have to get somebody in the next month or so. Like this has to be addressed, and they don't have an option. So does that put them in a little bit of a hamstring situation that they can't like get out of, but yeah, I mean, they have to get somebody in this situation to get out of this. But, the assumption is obviously Aaron Rodgers will be in the building and they'll be fine.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm not going to put them in a championship contenders tier like I made a mistake of last year with the Jets. But, like, I'm kind of buying in a little bit to the Steelers team. If Rodgers can just play okay, I don't know. They have the receivers. They have a good defense. Like, I'm doing this again, and they're going to go 4-8 again, and then they'll win some meaningless games later. But, like, that's what's going to happen. But I'm buying in right now, Kyle.
What if they what if Aaron Rodgers has like a Brett Favre Viking season?
Yeah.
Borderline MVP.
Yeah, I could see that, losing the conference championship game. But what he would have to do to Brett Favre, what would his version of the Brett Favre interception? Would it be like having an open receiver but not hitting him because it's too risky? Doesn't want to get the touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can't throw it into triple coverage like that or whatever.
Right, exactly. That's the something like that. Any more thoughts on the Steelers? Some of these teams we can probably not spend forever on.
Yeah, I think we're good on that one. Like you said, not the most exciting draft, but I think it was a good draft overall.
Yeah, sometimes the best drafts are the ones that aren't getting the phones lit up when they happen. Let's go to the Ravens now. Who this is very Ravens draft. They end up with 11 picks. They did draft a kicker, so there's that's notable. They just with the Justin Tucker thing, but the kind of the two key ones is Malachi Starks and Mike Green. Kyle, these are two prospects most people had in their top 20. You had Starks going at number 10 to the Bears in our mock draft, so a lot of talent here for Baltimore.
Yeah, I really like Starks. He kind of just fits the bill. Good Ravens player. He's going to cover a lot of ground. I think he's a very, very good safety, great tackler, all that kind of stuff. That's a home run pick for me. The Mike Green one, obviously extend circumstances off the field are the reason why he was available at 59. If you want to get into the morals of it, that's fine. But they got a very good, talented player at 59. I think that's the fact. So those two picks alone might make it an A. Like if you were doing grades, like that is a incredibly good value for those two picks. Plus they got a few other good players here. Like you said, they addressed their kicker need. I think they did a very good job and cleaned up this draft once again. Baltimore continues to do things better than everybody else in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they always get these edges in the draft. Yeah, and again, all these picks, and you look at like where they're drafting from the consensus big board, there really isn't a ton of reaches. Couple towards the end, including like the kicker one, but then there's also some where it goes the other way. So it just, and again, there's so many picks here that's just really what it comes down to is like, yeah, forget about the top two, which is maybe the best top two anyone had in this class. They also then got 9 more players. So yeah, probably going to work out well for them.
Yeah. I would assume it worked out well, and I do think this team could use another pass rusher. So getting a guy like Green too at that sort of value, I think, is really important for them.
Yeah. Let's go on to the Bengals. Bengals are next on the list. Who I think when I did my top 7 losers video, the Bengals were number 1 on the list, which I don't hate every pick here, but I'm not a huge Samar Stewart fan, and I don't think this is the right team to be drafting a developmental edge rusher when they, could be competitive right now if they had a game changer. Demetrius Knight should be a fine linebacker, off-ball linebacker for them. It still was a bit of a reach for me. So I don't know. Kyle, what did you think of this draft?
Yeah, not my favorite either. We did the whole Shamar Stewart thing. Obviously, we value a lot more production than he brought. He is incredibly athletic, and there is a chance he could become a very good player just off of athleticism alone. But more times than not, that doesn't work out. We've seen that over and over again. It's been talked about a lot in this podcast. It's not our favorite archetype of a player. So we'll see. But that being said, they had that sort of thing with Trey Hendrickson. He turned into a very good player for them. But it still feels like they got a long way to go. But they addressed a lot of guys on defense. So it wasn't like a total disaster for me. I like a guy like Barrett Carter at 119 too. I think he's a really good tackler as well. I think there's a couple good players in this draft. But yeah, it's just overall, looking at the top, it does feel like a couple reaches, even though, athletically those guys could be awesome.
Yeah. Well, and even using the Trey Hendrickson thing as an example, like, let's not forget, he was drafted by the Saints and didn't really break out until his last year with the Saints, and the Bengals so they essentially they developed someone else's player.
Yeah. And not only that, it was like, the contract at the time for the Bengals felt like a excessive contract. And then he really turned into like the production guy in Cincinnati and kind of turned into his, So it took a long time for him, and it's probably going to take a long time for Stewart for sure.
I do think he'll be a good run defender, but yeah, I just feel like I just don't think this, I could be wrong, but I just don't think this Bengals team is going to be that much different than they were last year.
Yeah. I mean, they needed help in the secondary, man. I think they needed to get some guys back there, and they didn't get any reinforcements for that group.
Yeah. Or just an edge rusher, I think would be more of an immediate impact. So we'll see. I mean, sometimes just defenses are weird. They're fluky, year in and year out. But as of right now, it just wasn't my favorite.
Yeah. Not to mention, Jody Barron went 20 in this draft, and I think the next corner was Hairston. Was it? I think
sounds right.
Yeah, so I mean, there was guys available for sure. So I guess it was just their rankings. Like I said, I think this is one of the few, this is one of the few drafts where it feels like the rankings are all over the place depending on who you ask, just because of, I think, the gap between prospect number 3 and prospect 40 is much smaller in this draft than a lot of other drafts, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why there were so many reaches, or quote unquote reaches. Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning AFC champs, reigning, they've been doing that a lot, but obviously have been to 3 straight Super Bowls, have won 2 of them. Interesting draft here where Josh Simmons, they end up trading back 1 pick and still get Josh Simmons. Hey, if you can trade back 1 pick, always worth doing it. A couple other selections I like the Omar Norman Lott and Ashton Gillette picks. Those are guys that I think will both be effective defensive linemen for them. And Noah Williams, keep an eye out for him. I think he's going to be in that Steve Spagnuolo scheme, he's going to be a guy that we're talking about years from now. Jalen Royals will pick 133. I think this is a really strong draft by the Chiefs, and they've had a couple of kind of up and down drafts lately, but I think this is closer to that one draft where they had 7 starters come from it.
It feels a lot like that, right? This feels like they kind of went back to their bread and butter with a lot of their prospects. Like you said, they got a corner that really kind of fits the archetype of every corner that they brought in there over the last like few years. They get a receiver who looks like he could play inside, outside, do all those different things, brings versatility. They get a running back at pick 228 who can, catch the ball. He was a former receiver. Like, it just feels like a draft as a whole that feels like the Chiefs kind of identified their scheme and said, let's draft players towards our scheme that, we think are valuable. So I get that a lot. All of it makes sense. The Simmons one, like, I think he slipped a little bit in this draft because of the injury, and I think that totally makes sense. Plus, it's like it was literally a 4-game sample size of him being a first-round prospect before he got hurt. He wasn't quite that at San Diego State. So it'll be interesting to see how he translates to the NFL. But, he's huge. He's athletic. I think there's a chance he could be good too.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, he is not a guard, right? He's a tackle. He's purely a tackle. Mm-hmm. Kyle, you were sort of making jokes about, that report, Sue Matea is not playing guard. They're drafting a guard in this draft. They did not draft a guard. So what are we, I can't imagine, I don't think Jalen Moore is he going to kick in the guard? There's the question now at left guard, right? That is still a question.
It's definitely going to be a question. I guess we'll just have to see how it lines up because, I don't see the vision for this one, but it just seems, I'm still not convinced Sue Matea is just going to be a guard next season after he was the third choice at that position last year.
He's going to be starting week 1. You're like, I don't see it. They're going to trade for someone.
Yeah, they could still trade for someone, honestly. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, there's still some free agents out there. That's what they should do. Trade for someone. Chiefs, just get a guard. Why are you every now and then a team does this where everyone's like, this team clearly needs like this position and they just refuse to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting gamble, but at the same time, 4 out of 5 offensive linemen look pretty good at this point. Maybe they can hide it a little bit. And they're clearly going to be more aggressive throwing the ball this next season. So I'm excited to see what the Chiefs can do.
Yeah, I remember someone compared it to Zion McCollum last year at the Buccaneers, where we kept saying, why are they going into the season of Zion McCollum? And then we saw him play. I'm like, oh, that's why. Maybe this is a situation there. We'll see. But let's move on. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers, Kyle, who had a very Chargers draft, a very Jim Harbaugh draft here, getting Omarion Hampton in the first round when many thought he was going to go to Denver a couple picks earlier. Trey Harris, kind of a big-bodied wide receiver. So, some trying to help out complete this offensive skill position group. Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a lot of offensive talent was added in this draft. They went offense heavy in rounds 1 and 2. They went back to offense in round 5. They get a lot of talent, like you said. They got the Auburn receiver who's incredibly fast. They get Trey Harris, who, like you said, has a big body, which is something they kind of need because Ladd McConkey is the slot guy. And then they get Omarion Hampton, who, you weren't as high on him. I think he was kind of a fringe first rounder for me, and I like him a lot. I think he's got some athleticism. I think he's got some shiftiness. So he fills into this backfield nicely. I think he's going to start over Najee Harris, and I think they're going to complement each other well. So I think it's going to be a very interesting team for the Chargers next season, and I think they did get better. And yeah, overall, I kind of liked what they did. I think I would have liked a little more help in the secondary rather than a 6th and 7th round pick at safety. But overall, I think they did decent.
Yeah, I honestly think those guys might just be special teams guys. But yeah, I mean, but you're correct there. But what are you gonna do? Sometimes the chips fall where they do. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the Hampton thing. So, like, I guess the question was, they signed Najee Harris. I think we all kind of thought that, okay, that's a solid running back 1. Like, you're good there. I think it's interesting because Harris and Hampton, it feels like both part of their value is that they can be out there like a ton of snaps, but maybe that's part of the logic is let's get 2 sort of physical players and just keep them fresh.
I don't think it's a bad strategy. I think anytime you can kind of ease up a running back's workload and, be ready for them to ramp up in January, I think it's a good thing to happen. I think that the running back conversation over the last year or so has become very interesting because of the Saquon Barkley thing. But I think the fact of the matter is if you don't have a Saquon Barkley type player, the strength is in numbers in the backfield, right? Even if you draft a running back in the first round, which, you could debate the merits of that. I think just having the strength in numbers and being able to rotate those guys in and out, a 100% healthy running back is better than, or 200% healthy running backs is way better than 180% running back who's not an elite guy. So I think having that option is, I think, very good for them, and it should help.
Yeah, and if you are going to be the team to draft the running back in the first round, you better be a team that runs the ball a lot, and that's what the Chargers are.
Yeah, they definitely set the tone there. They love to play off play action too, and so yeah, I think it's going to work.
Yeah. Any thoughts on like the Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert Smith adding some weapons here? I don't know if I'm expecting Trey Harris to be a star here, but I think there's you're adding bodies to a weak room. I think it's smart.
Yeah. And not to mention they're adding vertical bodies, which is something they didn't have last season.
Yeah.
This team really struggled to stretch the field at times. I mean, they did off of play action stuff because that's just the way the scheme worked. And now they're getting guys who it feels like they could really capitalize on that too. So if they're able to run the ball a whole bunch, they got guys that can beat them over the top as well. And they got Justin Herbert, who's got one of the best arms in the league. So I do like that overall.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to the other team that drafted a running back in round 1, the Raiders, Kyle, who with the Ashton Genty, also Jack Beck. Kyle, this over the middle, running the ball and then running these play actions and slant routes over the middle with Jack Beck, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers. We know Geno Smith can get him the ball. That's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, I mean, they have guys that seem like they can work that intermittent field very well. I like Beck in this scheme a whole lot. And Geno Smith, like you said, he's going to be very good in those situations as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm interested to see what they do for G&T's workload starting day one. Is he going to be just kind of the workhorse of this offense? I could see it. But yeah, very exciting times for the Raiders because I do think they got better on the offense side of the ball, and they're going to be infinitely more exciting, I think, than they were by the end of last season. And so, yeah, I like the talent. I like some of the talent they have, even though there's not like a quote unquote star at receiver between Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. That's a really fun group. And then they got a couple of nice complementary receivers. So I can't hate it at all.
Yeah, I mean, Bowers is the star, but obviously he's not a receiver. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the downside is I still think I would like this offense a little bit more if they had just a guy I trust that can win a go on the outside, right? I don't know who that guy is in this situation. Maybe Jacoby Myers, he can do it a little, right? But you're saying no?
I just don't think that's their skill set. No, they definitely. I mean, we'll see. This team definitely needs something on that spot, but overall, they clearly have a plan to play a certain style of football that may be a little old school, but I still think it could be a little exciting based on the playmakers they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, listen, ultimately, again, if you're going to draft a running back, okay, we'll build off of that. Have this be kind of your scheme. And I don't know if the Raiders, I don't know what they're going to be next year, but they're going to be great at something. And that's not something we could say, I don't know, for the past 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that's taken a while to get here. So, it's going to be very fun. I think this offensive line could be pretty good next season as well. And so, yeah, they're going to have that. They're going to have G&T. I mean, they even got Mostert behind him too, who's a good backup running back. This team's going to establish the ground game and kind of build off that.
Yeah. Also drafted 2 quarterbacks. It seems like one's maybe going to actually play quarterback. The other isn't. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I liked, I don't know what's going to happen with that, honestly, but, we'll see what happens there. I didn't get enough tape on Cam Miller and Tommy Malott, honestly.
Okay.
So we'll see how it works out for them. And then obviously, in our mock draft, I had Darian Porter in the first round. He's a guy I really like in this draft. I think he's going to be very exciting. He has the physical profile that is so tantalizing. It's a one-year wonder situation, but that could be a great buy low candidate.
Yeah. Well, Raiders. Look at the Raiders. Things are looking up, Kyle.
Big time draft. Big time draft indeed.
Yes. Let's move on to the final team of this division, the Denver Broncos, who did not. Well, every team is working on running the ball well. They're working on defending the pass well. So I think someone already brought up in the chat, well, maybe that's unfortunate for the Broncos that every team in the division is focused on running the ball. But okay, the head of the division is still the Chiefs. That's the team you have to focus on. They obviously pass the ball well. The Broncos, Jody Barron with pick 20, one of the more fun picks of this draft, I thought. I think he's really good. I'm just gonna be honest. Some weird picks here in the mix. They did draft a punter. They drafted RJ Harvey, who I know you really liked. I wasn't as crazy about, but pick 60 was just a bit early for me. Projected to go 110. Pat Bryant projected to go 162. They get him at 74. So some ones where I need a little bit more. More I need a little bit more explanations here. In fact, again, looking at the consensus big board, every single one of their picks other than Jody Barron was projected to go significantly later than they ultimately selected them. But I do like the Jody Barron pick a lot, and we'll see how the other ones go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good pick, and it may end up, I think it kind of just ended up the draft kind of broke into that was their best player available, so they took it sort of situation. They didn't really need the position, but they addressed it anyway, so I think it worked out for them. Yeah, I mean, I liked RJ Harvey a lot, and as a UCF guy, I think it kind of worked, but at the same time, I think part of it was, I still think that's a bit of a reach, and the Pat Bryant one is a reach, but I think that's also could be a in Sean Payton I trust thing when it comes to receivers, so we'll see. But yeah, I think overall the first pick was awesome. The rest of the picks definitely leave some questions, but I think RJ Harvey's exciting, man. Like, I think he's going to be someone that they really needed in this backfield because this is a team that probably should run the ball more, and they didn't really have the options back there last season. So hopefully they can add that to their game this year.
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate, I suppose, which is for Bo Nix. Last year the Broncos, I think they were like first or second in defensive points per drive against, but they really struggled. I wouldn't say they really struggled offensively, but that was kind of they were good enough on offense with their good pass protecting offensive line, Bo Nix and Sean Payton scheming things up. But it still felt like, can we get more downfield for a game like Buffalo when now guys aren't getting open? If this team plays a Buffalo or a Kansas City or a Baltimore, are we just going to see the same thing where their defense can keep them in it, but their offense ultimately can't get open consistently enough to stay competitive through 4 quarters?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what's going to happen unless we see one of these receivers take a leap or Bo Nix take another leap. So, yeah, I think that's definitely what's going to happen at this point. But, I guess it really kind of just depends on their evaluation process. Matthew Golden was a popular receiver pick that was 3 after their, first round pick. And, was that someone they could have gone for? Could they have gone for more explosiveness in that regard? I think RJ Harvey is definitely an explosive player. So that's, does kind of fit that bill, but he's not a receiver. So they need someone that could stretch the field. And for whatever reason, they didn't really value that in the first part of this draft because even the receiver they got is not like an explosive player.
Yeah. Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. And hey, you have Bo Nix for a while. This is not you don't need to win the Super Bowl next year. So maybe just trying to continue to move in the right direction. But let's move on. Let's go to the AFC South now. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. Again, not the most explosive draft to talk about. I think this might be one of the least talked about drafts because they kind of just did like the smart thing of, drafting Tyler Warren with pick number 14 when he fell to them, who even me, who was a touch lower on Warren than most people, I still had him as a top 15 prospect. So yeah, I think he's really good. I think that this is the right move. Fills a position of need. JT Tumalau. Kyle, these names are it's tough. It's tough as a non-college football fan trying to say all these. From my previews, I have to pronounce every name that got drafted in the first round. Or in the entire draft, not just the first round. It's hard. But yeah, again, not the flashiest draft, but I think ultimately a pretty good one.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of this draft. Obviously, Warren was my number 1 pass catcher in our preview podcast. And he was the second tight end taken. So I understood the Loveland hype because he's huge and kind of fits the bill of what, Ben Johnson was looking for. But I think Warren is just such a playmaker. Getting him at 14 does feel like a very, very good pick. I think that's a great first pick. I also like Tuimoloau. And yeah, I think he's a really good run defender. I think he brings a lot to the table. I think he still has a long way to go to produce as an edge rusher, but he is a huge guy at the position, and I think he's really going to be successful as well. So I like those first 2 round picks, and overall, I don't think they did a bad job whatsoever. So I can't hate this pick at this draft at all, and I think that overall they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, the only real question mark I have was a Justin Whaley pick. projected to go 186. They got him at 80. I was, reading about him because I didn't do a deep dive. Seems like, the read up is essentially like, well, he's not a great athlete. And I'm looking at his production, and he didn't have great production. So I'm not exactly sure what the logic is there. But ultimately, as a whole, again, I'm not going to quibble too much with pick 80.
Yeah. I mean, if that's your only bad pick, that's fine. I mean, they got DJ Giddens, who was a very good running back last season. So that's another player that they could add to this arsenal. Not a Riley Leonard guy, but they brought him in here. He, kind of fits the Anthony Richardson bill in some ways. I think it's a overall not a bad fit there. And I think they have some pieces for next season.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the team that hopefully has had the biggest impact in this draft for them, the Titans, who select Cam Ward first overall, who we all kind of said this is a one quarterback draft. Well, some said two quarterback draft, but most of us said it's a one quarterback draft. The NFL certainly said.
Mel Kiper.
Yeah, right. Yes. We didn't even touch on that. They drafted Cam Ward. It's an A+. Like, that's just all the other stuff we can talk about, but they did the right thing there.
I mean, how it turned. This draft will be remembered by that pick because either it's going to be a terrible draft because he's bad or a great draft. I mean, we can get in some of the other ones. Like I like A.O. Maynor. I don't think that's bad value in round 4. I like Gunnar Helm in certain ways. I don't think that's bad value in round 4. You can go up and down this draft and say, I kind of like this guy, kind of don't like this guy, whatever. But all that matters is the quarterback good or not. Because if he's good, the Titans have their franchise change for the next 10, 15 years. If he's bad, then they're probably going to be close to the number 1 pick again for the next few years. Right.
That's basically it. I mean, I don't know. How do we view, I guess it's weird where I think we knew this was going to happen for forever. So it's almost like not worth talking about, but how do we think it's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen this year? I mean, offensive line should be okay, right? They put, say what you want about the Dan Moore Jr. contract, but he's a fine tackle who will help them. Have J.C. Latham as the tackles. Kevin Zeitler came over. That's a good signing. Lloyd Cushenberry and Peter Skoronski. That's okay. Okay, those are 5 guys who belong in the NFL as starting players, right? Which they could not say that at all last year. I don't know if it's a loaded receiving core, but again, there's some pieces here. Like, what are we thinking for Cam Ward year 1?
It's interesting. I think people kind of viewed this as like a terrible situation for a quarterback going into the year. And, I don't think it's as bad as like people think all of a sudden. I mean, they still need better production out of J.C. Latham. They need better production out of Cushenberry at center. But obviously, like you said, they brought in a couple guys who I think are pretty good. They have a guy in Skoronski who I think is getting better. And then, I think the pass catching options aren't too bad either. I think a guy, Calvin Ridley, kind of had I would say under the radar kind of bounce back season. I mean, I thought he started to look like the older Calvin Ridley in a lot of ways back in this past season. And he looked like a guy who could be a number 1 receiver in the future. And, they had him. I thought Tony Pollard had a really nice season, too, as a 1,000-yard rusher. They get a veteran in Tyler Lockett, who I think is very friendly to quarterbacks just because he finds ways to get open in a lot of ways. So I think all of that's going to kind of help. Is my expectations like sky high for this team and like this offense? No. But, I think it's a decent situation for a quarterback to be in. It's no longer a disaster. So that's what I'm interested in.
How do you think you feel when you're like Will Levis and like, not to say like, listen, he did not do himself a ton of favors last year, but like, it's like, okay, it's like, okay, it didn't work out. They're going to draft a guy ahead of me. I'll have to be a backup. Well, that's the worst. And then like, oh, Dan Moore, whatever money it takes, please come here and help out our next quarterback. You gotta be like, well, what was I? Why didn't you do it for me?
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, where's our guy for our Panthers hate? How do you feel if you're Bryce Young just seeing the last couple seasons? The Bears knew all offseason they were taking Caleb Williams last year. Didn't quite work out year 1, but they put a lot of resources into that last season to make it a lot better situation and continue to put a lot of resources in it. And, the Titans in year 1 right away are immediately putting resources into this offense to try and make it better, a better situation for Cam Ward. And Bryce Young still throwing to Adam Thielen.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, Kyle. I think Bryce Young. I think the Panthers have done everything perfectly. I have no notes. Yeah. When it comes to them, they're just they do everything right.
Panthers of the playoffs this year. Is that your prediction?
Playoffs. We're talking Super Bowl.
Yeah. Back, baby. Here we go. All they needed was Ted McMillan. Just it was the final piece to the puzzle. Everything has fallen into place now.
Yeah. Says Michael, the Panthers fan, is either celebrating or down in the dumps. I I remember he was saying no Jalen Walker at pick 8. So I bet he's at least somewhat happy. We don't need to speculate on what our Panthers fan thinks of that. Kyle, let's move on to the Texans, who are the last team in the AFC South to talk about, because we already talked about the Jaguars at the top of the show. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, I think good to address the wide receiver position. I didn't expect them to address it that strongly, but this could be a team that could really pass well on the outside as long as they have time to do so. They did draft Ariante Essery in the middle of the second round. So they also got Jalen Smith. So they got a Jaden, a Jalen, and another Jalen. That's interesting. This is the all Jalen draft. But yeah, Kyle, what was your thoughts on the Texans all Jalen draft?
Yeah, the name Jalen is just completely taken off. It's one of the most popular. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
I don't know. I didn't notice this when I did a review. I think I was just so tired after doing 32 reviews in one weekend. I didn't even notice all of the Jalens.
Yeah, a lot going on here with that. But the Jadens and Jalens in this draft. I like the draft overall. They got some explosiveness. They recruit Iowa State's receiving room, which is interesting. But yeah, I think it was I think overall was a pretty good draft. Like you said, they kind of addressed what they needed to, right? This was a no-nonsense thing. They needed some receiver help. I think there was people who really liked Ezra, but it always seemed like he was kind of just like, oh yeah, he's the next tackle. First tackle of the second round should be him, sort of situation. And they get him in the second round. I think there's a chance he's a pretty good player too. So, they addressed their offensive needs, which is definitely what they needed more than defense going into this season. So I can't complain about the strategy of this draft.
Yeah. Like Brandon in the chat saying Texans draft grade is J. Yes, that is definitely true. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think, again, the criticism of should you have not traded Laramie Tunsil is still going to be kind of here, because I do feel better about this team if they have a tackle I can trust here. But I don't know. There are some offensive linemen that should be okay. If SRA can play okay, I guess him and Cam Robinson. Okay, I mean, I don't want to see Blake Fisher out there too much. I think him and Cam Robinson are probably the guys there. There's something there.
There's something there, but obviously it's still a hypothetical something, because it is we haven't seen these guys play in the NFL all that much. So, I mean, we've seen Cam Robinson. We know what Cam Robinson is, but Ezra is obviously something. And this was not a strong offensive line last season outside of Tunsil. So it's got to earn our trust. Yeah.
Kyle, let's go to your team, the New England Patriots, a team that, someone already alluded to it in the chat, that they did make my 7 losers list, but I don't hate every pick here. Kyle Williams is one of my favorite picks in this draft class. But ultimately, I think the biggest reason why they're losers is just there was the hope that one of the top 3 prospects would fall to 4. That ultimately didn't happen. Got a bit too special teams happy later on in the draft for my taste as well. But some picks I like. Braden Swinston, I think, is a great value at 146. So I think a bit of an up and down draft. And I was just lower on Will Campbell than most, but I'm assuming you're higher on it than I am. And I'm not. There were some good picks I liked, but I'm assuming you're higher on it than I am.
I like the draft. I'm excited for the draft and what happened. Overall, at the end of the day, I was seeing
Kieran says, never seen Kyle this angry. Kyle about to start throwing hands. Yeah, Kyle, you are clearly livid.
Look, I think it was a good draft. I think they very much had a plan going into this draft. I saw a bunch of A+ and all that, winners of the draft, best draft overall. And I don't know about that, but overall though, Will Campbell was my second tackle. I think he was your third tackle, but I had my 3 top tackles in this draft in the top 15. So is it a bit of a reach for me? Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think it's an outlandish thing to say Will Campbell was our top tackle and that's what we wanted at this position. I thought it was fine overall. I would have probably still have preferred Membu, but at the same time, I get it. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. They clearly really like him. I think the one thing I really liked about this draft is they clearly, with picks, their second and third picks, while I think the Henderson one's a bit of a reach, they clearly had a desire, and I think if you watch this Patriots team last season, it's very clear. they needed some explosiveness in their offense. This offense was way too slow, way too just not creating enough big plays whatsoever. And they got debatably the most explosive running back in the draft and debatably the most explosive receiver in the draft. Kyle Williams can absolutely fly. He has some great separation metrics. He is, just, a jack of all, he's going to be an awesome weapon, I think, in the NFL. I really like
now
that
Kyle
pick.
Williams is going to be awesome. When I was talking him up during the draft evaluation, you're like, I don't know. It seems like you're a bit high on him. But now you're just repeating what I said.
I liked him. I just didn't know how much I liked him. But yeah, I mean, I think he is obviously explosive. I think he's got a chance. And then Henderson, I mean, look, Henderson, if you watched his freshman year, you would have said this was absolutely a first round pick running back. If you watched the other years, I think it got a little bit worse, but at the same time, he is incredibly explosive. He averaged 7 yards per carry his senior year in kind of a secondary back role. And he could take a house call on any play. So yeah, I think getting those two guys and saying, let's get explosive on offense, let's get some big play threats here was important. And so yeah, I think those are fine overall. I like the drafts. Like you said, I think the Swinson pick is one of the best value picks of this draft for any team. And I thought that was a really good one. And then, they got a kicker, which I thought was important too, because our kicking sucked.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things I'm just like, I'm not crazy about drafting running backs. I'm not crazy about drafting kickers, not because kickers aren't valuable, but because they just don't always work out when you draft them. But I'm not always crazy about drafting long snappers either, Kyle, just my opinion. But ultimately, whatever. Okay. If they draft a long snapper with the 6th to last pick in the draft, drafted a special teams guy in the last pick of the draft. Those are fine. It's a draft I like. That's the weird thing about doing a losers list of the draft is most teams are smart and make mostly good decisions. That's why it's hard to come up with 7.
Yeah. And I continue to say, as I said earlier, I think the gap between player 30 and player 40 in this draft was so small that I can't even hate the Will Campbell pick that much because if your evaluation was just a little bit higher, Will Campbell's probably a top 5 pick compared to what I had. So, it's just one of those things that it's a preferential thing.
100%. Yeah. They're part of why they're losers. It was completely out of their control of just what the first 3 teams did.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't.
Joe Milton is why they're losers.
Maybe. Yeah, pretty much. And then they traded him. So, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's plenty of reason to be excited. I don't want to hurt your excitement.
I mean, yeah, it's still a wait and see situation. I'm not gonna go buy a Travion Henderson jersey, but I do want to see him on the field. I think he can be fun.
Yeah. Let's gotta get the Kyle Williams jersey instead.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's move on. 3 teams left to talk about. The rest of the AFC East. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills, getting Maxwell Hairston, who, okay, that's just we're gonna play the Chiefs in the playoffs and we want to be able to beat them pick, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that they needed a player in that position, and yeah.
Oh, we're getting this fast corner to play. The total has nothing to do with us playing the Chiefs twice a year.
Right, exactly. We kind of had that one nailed in the mock draft. Obviously, I think I'd pick Darian Porter, who is just someone I am very high on. But at the same time, this team definitely needs a corner, and they got one that they really liked, and that a lot of people really liked. And like you said, he can absolutely fly, so he should be able to fit this team.
We have a comment saying, do you guys think Arizona is a playoff team? I would have to really go through it and do my evaluation, but I can definitely see it. I think they have playoff potential.
Yeah, I think I said that after free agency. I think there's a path to them making the playoffs. I think some of the teams in front of them got worse, and I think they also got better. So I'm excited to see what Arizona can do.
Yeah. But for the Bills, other than I think Hairston pick, which again, he's a player I really liked. I don't remember if I think you maybe were a little lower on him, or maybe I was just higher on him than most. I forget. But a lot of other picks, TJ Sanders should be a good interior guy for them for however many snaps. We'll see. Same thing with Deion Walker. Landon Jackson should be able to play off the edge for some snaps. It's just a lot of contributors here. It's almost kind of similar to how the Chiefs operate, right? Where it's just these guys are going to play some snaps here.
Yeah, and this team does draft pretty well at defense, especially, and they loaded up with defensive prospects early. So, it's kind of one of those things in them I trust sort of situations. I do like TJ Sanders. And, I think there was a lot of people that liked Landon Jackson as kind of like an analytics guy. So I think that could be a pretty good value pick as well. So I think overall, top to bottom, I think it's a pretty solid draft. And, I kind of just trust this team to do its developmental thing at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember if Atlanta Jackson was the analytics guy or maybe the opposite of it. But he was the guy who, but he's 280 pounds as an edge rusher. So that's like he's a weird body type, but was a really good run defender and still had some decent pass rush metrics. So he's someone you're going to have to figure out how to use.
Yeah, and maybe he moves inside, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either, because I think interior pass rushing could still be a valuable trade as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's move on. 2 teams left. Let's go to the New York Jets, who get your tackle 1, my tackle 2, Armand Membo, second tackle off the board. Mason Taylor, who's kind of more of a developmental tight end here. Also get Azariah Thomas, who was a corner a lot of people really liked as well, and good value getting him in round 3. So yeah, this is just a really good draft by the Jets. They did draft Arian Smith, who was projected to go 274 at pick 110, but ultimately, again, every now and then those picks work out, but they're always weird when they happen. I think that I really like their first pick, and I think that the other 2 picks are players that are at least decent value there.
Yeah. Just reading the PFF bid on Arian Smith, he earned a 57.1 PFF grade with 10 drops on 48 receptions. So probably not what you're looking for.
Oh no!
NFL, but
wow, is this a Tim Boyle situation?
I think he's young. I think the whole thing is that he's a incredible athlete, and they're going to hope that they turn him into receiver. We'll see.
Gotcha.
But there were some people who love Mason Taylor, and I thought he was fine. Like, I wasn't like in love with him or anything, but like, there was people who were like saying he's a first round player and all that kind of stuff. I still think he has some development to go, like you said, but I could kind of see the vision for it. But yeah, it's just like, so maybe that is a good pick. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, Membu is, I think, a really good player. And, they've gone tackle the last 2 years in the first round, and they've gotten my favorite tackle of the draft in the last 2 first rounds as well. So, I kind of think the Jets could be kind of nasty on the offensive line next season with those 2 guys. I really like the 2 tackles they got developmentally, and you got to give these guys some time, give them some patience, but I think they could have a very good draft with those 2 guys.
Yeah, it's some variation of the stoppable force and the immovable object of the Jets tackle situation being really good and Justin Field loving to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen? What's going to win?
It's never going to look good for a young tackle when your quarterback holds the ball for 5 seconds and you get blamed for the sack. That's the issue that they're going to run into. But if you're patient with these 2, I mean, they got 2 of the best athletes in the last 2 drafts at their positions, and I think they could both be awesome.
Yeah, and not to mention like Joe Tippmann, John Simpson, and Elijah Vera Tucker on the inside. Like, it's not like they're only going to tackle. Like, no, this could be one of the best offensive lines in the league next year if Alu Fashanu continues to develop and Membu develops.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of intrigue there, and I think they could do a very good job for sure. Yeah, I think that is an overall very good draft for the Jets, but this team I still think has a long way to go.
Yeah, let's go to the final team to talk about, the Miami Dolphins, who it was a draft to get meaner, right? To get more physical. Kenneth Grant should certainly do that. They also got Jonah, I'm not going to say his last name, in the second round, who, I totally get what the Dolphins are doing. I think my question is, could they have still maximized value? Could they have just maybe, I don't know, signed a mean guy off the street, right? Is this the exact way you want to do this? Because, again, Grant was projected to go kind of towards the end of the first round. Not quite end of first round, but 24th on the consensus big board. They get him at 13. The offensive line they get projected to go at the end of the second round. They get him at the beginning of the second round. So picks that like they kind of needed to make, but also my question is just, could they have gotten more value?
I definitely think they could have asked if they could have gotten more value for sure. I don't necessarily hate the picks overall. I think it's a little crazy this team didn't get any secondary help after what they lost this season and this whole Jalen Ramsey thing going on. And I think they waited to round 5 before they added anybody in the secondary.
Pick 150, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is a risky proposition for sure, and something that they're going to have to figure out going forward. But maybe they just had different different grades on some of these guys early in the rounds too. So, depends on how your draft board breaks, I guess, as well. But yeah, I think that they clearly had a plan to boost the interior, boost their line of scrimmage, and hope that works out. But yeah, I think that they still needed some help on the fringes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know. Again, I don't know exactly what we're doing. If we're the Dolphins right now, they're in a weird spot. So I mean, again, if these picks work out, it could work, but it kind of feels like we're you have a, maybe this is just me, but it almost feels like you have a bucket and you're scooping the water out of the boat when there's like 10 holes in it.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, I don't know. It could have been just a situation where they wanted to address a few things. I don't know. But like, yeah, it just feels like this team's moving in the wrong direction. And maybe this draft is just a small microcosm of that, but it just feels like that they haven't really addressed everything they needed.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like the contracts are already there. You might as well, I guess, just go with it and see if you can make it work. I guess it's still better to have the water out of the boat if you can scoop it out. So I guess, like, I don't know. I get it. I don't know if I would have done anything differently, but like, I just don't think I'd be that excited if I'm a Dolphins fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be too excited with this draft or this team, honestly. But maybe they bounce back and Tua's healthy and they look awesome next season. You never know. They got Quinn Ewers, so maybe they address backup quarterback too. We'll see. It's a whole lot of speculation at this point. I guess the only one, like, as far as skill position goes, like, Ollie Gordon could actually be a pretty interesting sleeper in this draft. Like, everything went wrong at Oklahoma State last season, but he had like 1,700 yards the year before. Like, there is a chance he's actually kind of awesome, and that's like a steal at round 6 too. So we'll see.
Also, can you talk about the Quinn Ewers thing? Because, like, so first off, I feel like I kind of came off like a Quinn Ewers hater during the. I kept like, I did, yeah, well, because it just, I don't think he was a great college quarterback, but I mean, he did some nice things, but like, I don't think he's like he's not going to be a day one player in the NFL. I guess is how I would say it. But like, I do think there's enough talent there to, like, I would have probably drafted him before a lot of the other guys that went ahead of him. But also, like, why are they obsessed with drafting like developmental backups? Like, why are they just incapable of just getting like a decent, like, especially when their quarterback is like not a like talented, like a freak athlete at all. Like, like he's all about like quick processing. Like, that's his skill set. And they just refuse to at every turn do anything but Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers, Tyler Huntley. What's going on?
Yeah. I don't hate the idea of Quinn Ewers at all at that pick, especially because, the prospect level he was, I think there is some serious arm talent potential there. He has an incredibly quick release. There are things there, but he was in maybe the most friendly offense in college football and still made things look difficult at times. And I think that's the thing you have to be concerned about. I personally think Steve Sarkisian might be the best play caller in all of football and NFL and college. And yeah, I think the fact that, I don't think there is a person who could have made it easier. Not to mention, we talked a lot about these receivers for Texas, obviously Bond and Matthew Golden are two guys. Matthew Golden goes in the first round, all that kind of stuff. So yeah. And Kelvin Banks is obviously a great tackle. He had a really good situation, I think, overall. And then all of a sudden we're stuck in a situation where, it's going to be a lot harder for him going forward, and he's still got a long way to go developmentally.
Yeah, which I don't hate. I just think it's a weird fit with Miami. Like, same with Tyler Huntley, as Kieran brings up. It's like I like Tyler Huntley, but it's a weird fit in Miami. But Kyle, those are the 32 teams, or those are not 13. Those are the 16 teams in the AFC. Next week we will do the NFC. The following week we will be off. I will be on my honeymoon, so I will not be doing a podcast that week. But Kyle, the chat is wanting us to talk about Mel Kiper. Let's do a quick Mel Kiper. I mean, so I'm very busy during draft night. Obviously, I'm making videos. Also, my internet went down in the middle of draft night just to make things worse. So I had to deal with that. But ultimately, I didn't listen. I kind of half listened sometimes. I did at one point, I think after the Steelers drafted, heard Mel Kiper say something, or someone said something along the lines of like, I don't know what's happening, but it can't be football related. Like, already, like, after like 20 picks when he hasn't been selected. So yeah, quite the meltdown Mel Kiper had. Kyle, I'm assuming you heard more of it. What were your thoughts on the Mel Kiper of it all?
So I was flipping back and forth, honestly. Like, I'm not a big like draft watcher. I just, I get the
check your
drafts,
phone, get the updates.
Yeah, I can get the updates when I need them. Like, there's just me personally, if you like the draft, that's fine. I don't get the TV aspect of it. I would prefer to watch actual sports, and it's tough because the draft is on during like playoff basketball time now, so I'm going to be watching basketball over that. But I'll check the updates, see the draft stuff, see who gets picked where, anything. Every time I flipped over to ESPN, though, they're talking about Shedeur Sanders. And Mel Kiper is losing his mind because apparently, I didn't even see his big board mock draft, whatever. Apparently, he had him like 10th or something on his big board.
I think he was number 1 quarterback on his big board.
It was something like that. So, yeah, he had him. And, yeah, so every time it came back, it was just Mel Kiper losing his mind that, like, this guy is going to make everybody look foolish. This guy is going to prove everyone wrong, all yada, yada, yada. And it's just like, all right, man. Like, it just became a point where it's like, we get how you feel. And, like, yeah, he's going to have to prove everyone wrong, I guess. And that's kind of the gist. But, yeah, he was going a little ballistic about it. So, it is interesting because, like, I do think, like, having listened to him and Todd McShay, obviously, over all of these years, and there's now obviously draft guys everywhere. Draft guys are, make their own channels now at this point. I don't know if I've seen a bigger disconnect between like a guy who is an insider draft guy who obviously has sources with scouting departments and all of that. I don't know if I've seen a bigger disconnect from a draft guy like Mel Kiper to where a player was actually picked, right? Like, these guys construct a lot of their mock drafts and their big boards based on what they're hearing from scouts. So I don't know where the disconnect was between Mel Kiper and his evaluation and everybody else in the NFL stratosphere to where this happened. But yeah, he was on it basically the entire draft. And like, I mean, he didn't have anything else to say except for talk about it.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, like, I don't know why, like, because I feel like people, like, we're almost like, I don't know, like second string media, right? Of like, we kind of have to listen to what people that are actually like on the, in those rooms can kind of tell us, so we kind of know what the fans know. But like, yeah, it's very bizarre that there was such a disconnect. But it's some quarterbacks I think are sometimes hard to really predict. I'll say this too, though. Clearly, people are interested in it. I mean, my video after round 2, when it was like, so why hasn't Shedeur Sanders been drafted? It was just like 8 minutes of me being basically like, this is weird, right? And that has over 50,000 views. That was the most viewed video I made the weekend. So I mean, it was a popular story, right? Like, I get why he was interested in it because a lot of people were interested in it, but it still did feel like he went a little overboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that gets a lot of clicks. Like, I remember, I think Quincy Avery, the quarterback coach, I've seen his stuff in media before too. And, he has a lot of high profile quarterbacks that he coaches in the NFL. I think he said something along the lines on a podcast that if Shedeur's last name was Williams, he'd be a 6th-round talent. And I guess he was closer to right than everybody else based on what we saw. So, everyone had an opinion on Shedeur Sanders. It just seemed like Mel Kiper's was the most extreme and loudest.
Yeah. And I will say,
kind of par for the course for ESPN.
Yes, exactly. Wow. ESPN, loud. I will say, I went back and I just did like another evaluation of Shedeur Sanders watching tape. And it's like, it's a weird thing where just how quarterbacks are. Like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's crazy to draft him in the 1st round. I also don't think it's crazy to not draft him until the 5th round. Like, I kind of get both just because of how weird quarterbacks are.
If you wanted to nitpick Shedeur Sanders, you could. And I think that was the reason. Mm-hmm. And because he was probably the most talked about college football player last season, I think he got nitpicked. And I think that's fine. I think there are still things like, beyond even all that, there are still things that I still really like about his game. Like, I think he's incredibly tough. I think he's got some of those intangibles. I think he is accurate with the ball. And there are things I really don't like about his game that I don't think are going to translate, and things he has to work through to get to the next level. I think he holds on to it too long. I think he tries to play hero too much. I don't think he has like a, superb arm. I think he runs himself into trouble more times than not. So I think there are things he's definitely going to have to work on that clearly scared off a lot of teams because, no matter how bad your interviews are, whatever it is, if you're talented, you're going to get drafted in the NFL. And I think him slipping is a product of teams being scared off by some of his weaknesses that are clearly things he's going to have to be coached out of.
We have someone in the chat saying I think he'll never play a game in the regular season or playoffs. But weird if he only played playoffs. Kyle, will Shitter Sanders start a game in the NFL?
I'll say yes. Why not? All I need is one.
Yeah, I'll say it's probably at some point this year. Fans are going to clamor for it unless I really think the only difference is unless Dylan Gabriel is just better, or if he doesn't make the team, if he's just not good enough to make the team. At a certain point, you almost just have it's Johnny Manziel still started some games with Kyle Shanahan as offensive coordinator, right? And he didn't want to do that. Like it can be forced to happen.
Yeah, I'll still say I think Johnny Manziel had more of a chance than people gave him.
Okay,
I think Johnny Manziel's issues off the field were more problem than Johnny Manziel's football talent.
Maybe. I mean, I think the off the field might have turned into it. I remember I went back and watched some of those games I did a Kyle Shanahan deep dive a handful of years ago. The worst game I've ever seen play was a Johnny Manziel game. I forget which one it was, but it was just it was brutal.
Yeah, I just think it turned into he didn't work hard. Like I don't think it was an issue of him having talent or not.
Yeah, well, hopefully Shitter Sanders, hopefully it's a wake-up call. We'll see. Kieran asked, are we excited about the Lightning game? Excited is not the word I would use.
Had a rough postseason. Mm-hmm. I hate Florida. I don't want to talk about it.
I've never seen a team just like I've seen physical teams. I've seen teams injure other players. That's just like all they do. Like I didn't realize it was just like this year. It's crazy how blatant it is. But whatever. That's not why we're losing. But it's crazy.
Yeah, it's their thing. They toe that line. They have towed that line better than a lot of teams over the last few seasons. And they're clearly.
I don't think they really toe a line. I think they just realize that the NHL doesn't really care about it, and so then they just do it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Teams are built to play playoff hockey, and this team is built to play playoff hockey.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff, but I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, the Leafs blow a 3-0 lead.
That'd be really funny.
Yeah, that'd be the best.
For the course, yeah.
I was like, after game 4, I'm like, do I really want to watch hockey? Like, I was so frustrated at the game, like the injuries and all that stuff. The Florida fans cheering that Brandon Hagel got injured. I was just so turned off by it. And I see the Leafs are losing again. I'm like, okay, this is funny. I gotta watch. I can't not watch this.
Yeah, can't miss that. So this team continues to be awesome. You can't help it.
And Kyle, I'm watching a lot of basketball too. I know we're running long, but the basketball, it's been a really fun postseason. I mean, the series have all kind of stunk, but like the games have been really good.
All the games have been really competitive. If they all end in 5 games, whatever. I think the games have been outside of the 1-8 series. Obviously we got 2 50-point losses in those ones. I think all the games have been actually really competitive. I think this Pistons Knicks one has been awesome. The Clippers Nuggets, which the Clippers just continue to be a hilarious franchise, continues to be awesome. I mean, even this
James Harden can't do it alone,
Oh yeah, 3 of 9 yesterday, so that worked out. Those have been obviously the best 2 series, but even like that Orlando team, that Orlando team is just a pain in the ass, and like they competed in every one of those games. It felt like, even though until the third quarter of this game 5, but like they were competitive in the series, even though it ended in 5. I think all the games have been really fun. This Minnesota Lakers series, I think Minnesota's going to win at this point, but it's been an entertaining games basically, except for game 1. So I can't hate any of it.
Yeah, that game 4 that was Magic Celtics, that was close. And if the Magic could have just pulled it out, they still probably lose in 6, but it felt possible for a second there. Tatum was just too good. Tatum he's ridiculous.
He's gone up a level. I think he's an incredibly smooth player, and I think that Boston's looks really good. The only question for Boston at this point is health, because I don't think Jaylen Brown looks right. Drew Holiday obviously missed a few games, and that's going to be the big question for them going forward.
The Magic weren't really helping with that. Gotta be honest.
That team plays physical, and I think that's been the best part about the NBA playoffs is they're letting them play more physical, it feels like, than they have in a very, very long time. These games feel hard, and I think that's something that fans really enjoy watching.
The fouls are still ridiculous, though. I still have to say, it does drive me crazy how it feels like every time someone drives to the rim, there's a foul.
There's still a lot of complaining about it. Like, it's not perfect, and I mean, it's a game that the thing is that the game plays so fast that the slightest touch is going to send you flying, right?
Yeah.
And these players are definitely not afraid to embellish that contact either. So that doesn't help. But at the same time, like, I think they have done a very good job of allowing more contact in a safe manner, in an exciting manner at times. But yes, there is still a lot of foul calls. And I mean, the fouls are actually up in the playoffs, but I think that's because we're getting a lot more contact on these drives too.
Yeah. It's interesting, but yeah. So sports have been fun. Kyle, that is our show. Let them know where we can find us on Twitter before we head out. Did we do that already? Or no, we haven't, right?
No. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if you like audio only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline Podcast. It should be available there. Kyle, I have a tweet that's gotten like over 300 likes that I tweeted today. It was which I never like. I don't like when because people start commenting and it's annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are nice and fun, but then there's the worst kinds of people find it. And for some reason, a tweet that was, imagine pulling a prank so bad your dad has to pay $100,000 and his boss has to pay $250,000 and everyone online is mad at you. Somehow people found a way to be annoyed at that.
Yeah. Everyone's got to be a contrarian online. Nobody's happy. That's fine.
No, we're happy.
Yeah. That's still a crazy story. What a wild circumstance that was too. I mean, all the layers to this Shedeur Sanders thing is just wild. Yeah, what a bonehead that kid is.
Yeah, Kieran says views went up since we started hockey chat. That's true. That's weird. I don't know why views are two more views now. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, and also it's funny that like apparently like every other player in the draft also got prank called and like nothing is happening there.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I don't know, man. I didn't even follow up on the story. I just thought, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, there's like at least like 3 other instances of it happening.
Awesome.
Including a 6th rounder, which that's just like horrible. Like, what if he went undrafted?
Yeah. Then he has to remember that. Yeah, I don't know. Was it all the same kid?
I don't think so. I think they said it's unrelated incidents.
Yeah, wasn't me. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Why'd you feel you need to say that?
Just to make sure, clear the air that it was not me. You can check my phone records.
Okay. Yes. Can I? Or will you pull Tom Brady and destroy it?
Yeah, my phone's broken actually, so
yeah, okay.
Throw it out the window real fast.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching. We do appreciate it. We'll be back next week for the NFC and to talk about the Lightning great 3-1 comeback. Until then, have a good one.
Peace.